what is the difference between just renovation, A&A, reconstruction, and rebuild? There are 4 different terms and 4 different ways you can go about to work on the landed home that you are going to buy. And I'm going to walk through what they mean, because some people don't understand whether you're required to apply for an A&A permit and whether it constitutes a reconstruction or whether you can just do it as a pure renovation. So without further ado, I'm sarahxmiracle, landed realtor and a mom of 4. I also make videos like this every week, so please do give us a like and a subscribe for more videos if you like real estate content. First and foremost, most people are wondering if they have an old house, what they can do to optimize the buildup of the particular plot. And so the most immediate thing you could do would be to do additions and alterations, which would mean extending the gross floor area of livable space of the house. So for example, you have, let's say, a 7-meter space at the back of the house. You could potentially extend the livable area of the house 5 more meters, so you can still have a 2-meter setback. That is one of the thoughts, so that you could have technically a whole new set of rooms at the back of the house that never existed before. That would initially be thinking that could just be considered an A&A, which is Additions and Alterations project. But if you are thinking that you may only need a ground floor extension, there are also ways that you can potentially extend with what you call a permeable space, which one of my other clients have done, to just extend out in that particular house a bit of more of a living or dining area, but with completely permeable structures such as sliding glass doors. So you will be able to enclose it when you need it, but you technically are not building fixed external walls that would require what you call an A&A permit. So depending on the structure that you choose, you could potentially just extend the ground floor with permeable structures in order to extend your living space. But if you wanted to be able to, let's say, do also the same extension but on the second floor, you will definitely need an A&A project, because you will need new columns, you will need new load bearing, and so you will need some kind of foundational works to be able to support the load on the second floor. So 2 options for you if you just want to extend the living space on the ground floor. Yes, you can do a proper A&A, or 2, you can just add semi-permeable or permeable structures like some of my clients have already done before. Now we've cleared what could be potentially done for just pure renovation to extend the space. If you didn't want to do a full-blown A&A, let's go into what makes A&A versus what you call a reconstruction. Now there are 6 factors listed by the URA that determine whether or not this is an A&A project or a reconstruction. And in a sense, it's all works, but the permit required is different, and the considerations and the length of time you will take will also be different. That's why if we want to just do a pure A&A, which is in a sense lesser red tape, you may want to take note of these 6 factors. First is gross floor area. You cannot have your new gross floor area exceeding more than 50% of your existing gross floor area. Let's say if your built up currently is 3,000 square feet, your new GFA that you're adding on, whichever part you're adding on, whether it's an attic or the side of the house, the total GFA would only be maximum now of 4,500, because 3,000 plus 1,500, it gives you 4,500. If you wanted to do more extensive GFA intensification, that would be a reconstruction project. Second one is external walls. If you have 50% of the external walls being replaced, or rather new external walls, so this also has to do with the facade. If the external walls have only just a 50% add-on, that is A&A. If you have more than 50% added on, and you can see the facade, the external walls, that's going to be a reconstruction. Third factor is structural elements. In the BCA plans that are submitted for every single house, which you must request if you are buying a landed house, by the way. Never buy a landed house without requesting for the BCA plans, so that you can actually see the entire structure of the house. And if you don't know how to read this BCA plan, it's important to get a consultant, pay somebody to help you to understand and decipher what the plans mean. Every single BCA plan will be able to show you where the column is, how wide is the footing of the column. And they will also have calculations to show how much load the columns are going to bear. If, let's say, structurally, for example, you are needing to change the structural columns, whether it's because of the placement or whether because you need additional ones for load-bearing purposes, if you have within 50% of the columns in this picture, the structural changes, the new ones are going to be roughly 50% add-on. For example, in my Jalan Jelita listing, so this is where you can see the columns of the house. C1, C2, they're all all numbered, and you can see the footing size of each column. And you can see that on this right side, there is almost nothing. And that's because our layout, which is over here, this part is empty. So that's why most people would have come to the house saying that you want to A&A, which means add on rooms, add on a structure where now it's that empty second floor where you just see the roof of the ground floor. Obviously, because there's already so many columns over here, you can see it's numbered until 13 or even 18 columns. If I could add up to 9 more columns, and that would still be within an A&A project. So let's say I needed to add another 20 columns, like I needed to double the number of columns to support the structure that I'm designing, then definitely this would be considered a reconstruction and not an A&A project. That is the third factor to do with whether or not you would consider this an A&A or reconstruction project. 3 more factors, and the fourth one is your attic. If you're adding an attic that has more than 50% GFA of the rest of your house, that is going to be reconstruction, right? But if your attic, let's say, is only 1,000 square feet and your built up of your house is 2,000 square feet, you are just borderline over there, where you can now have a total of a 3,000 square feet built up house. Attic is very similar to the gross floor area, but it's specifically to do with the attic itself. If you have, for example, attic, and you are also going to be doing additional works in the rest of the house, let's say the back of the size of the house, attic's already 50%, and the size of the house are going to be another 20%, 30%, then the whole thing overall is likely going to be a reconstruction project. These particular factors also have to add up together. It's not just one factor, but you have to add up the totality of what you're doing to the house. The fifth factor is increase in story height. Now, this is very interesting because you can have an additional false ceiling on top of your existing house, but it's not an additional story. You can have a very, very high ceiling that can be changed. So if you change from a lower false ceiling to a higher false ceiling, that's just A&A works. That's not reconstruction. What if you wanted to add on an additional floor, another story with that additional attic? That is 100% reconstruction. If you were thinking, okay, I just want to increase my ceiling heights on the second floor, that's fine. But if you were to add on, that would definitely be a reconstruction project. If you're saying that there's a change in the number of stories. You hear me out? Over here, the example that's given, you have an existing 1-story house. You want to change the existing roof to a new roof that has a higher ceiling. That's fine. That's A&A. But if you want to actually add on a new roof because you have a new second floor, and that second floor will then have a higher false ceiling, even though like the height might be the same for these two houses, because having a new second floor with the one on the right in the diagram, that constitutes a reconstruction. And lastly, changing your housing format. If you are changing from, let's say, terraces to semi-D or semi-D to a detached, any change in housing format is 100% reconstruction. You cannot count it as just a pure A&A project. In the URA guidelines, if you had 2 semi-D plots that are large enough by URA guidelines to then be detached plots, means that they can detach from each other. So your neighbor might not be detaching yet, but you want to detach because your land is big enough. Changing the housing form from a semi-detached to a detached, that is a changing housing form, and definitely that is considered a reconstruction. So for the purposes of submissions and planning, a rebuild versus a reconstruction requires you to be tearing down the entire house and building what they call a new erection from scratch. So it is quite a significant difference from a reconstruction, where you have retained elements of the current house, just that you are making major structural changes more than 50%. You are having more than 50% GFA added on. You are having more than 50% of the existing walls or columns. You are having an additional story from the addition of either a new roof or attic, or you're changing the housing form. All of these are reconstruction, but you're still maintaining a certain essence and part of the existing house. But a rebuild is a total pull down. And sometimes you will find that the reconstruction cost is almost the same as a rebuild, and then you might as well do that because then you can change your ceiling heights. Because in a normal reconstruction format, to be able to retain what you call those number of stories and etc., usually you can't change the ceiling heights. So if you're really keen to make something your own, then obviously a rebuild project, that might be able to be more suited for you so that you can really design the house in the way that you imagine to live in it. But of course, not everybody has that time and the budget. So depending on your budget, you may choose to just stick with a reconstruction or even just a pure A&A, which means less than 50% of all these changes. And if you have even lesser budget, you can consider what I call just a renovation with some additions of permeable structures to increase the living space on only the ground floor. All these options are available for you, and if you have any other questions about the difference between that and therefore what would make a good landed buy, I have other videos that talk about it, how certain qualities of a landed house actually make it more favorable, not just for your living space but also for your future exit plan. So watch that video as well. So if you like videos like this, I hope you like and subscribe. I have more videos coming up. See you next week. I'm Sarahxmiracle, landed realtor and mom of 4.